Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Tiger Minor League Report recap here at TigersMLReport.com. I'm Rogelio Castillo. Rogelio Castillo alongside me is Chris Brown. Well, he'll be on here shortly, and we chose a pretty good day. Sunday is usually a day we broadcast anyway, but a lot has happened on a Sunday evening as the Tigers made a series of call-ups, and we'll wait for Chris to get here. But first and foremost, I want to thank. So we had a chance to go out to South Bend on Friday. And good evening, Aiden. Good to see you here on the YouTube chat. Of course, you can subscribe to us on YouTube, and we're gonna be releasing something up for YouTube here shortly. Some extra bonus content, some way to subscribe, but I'm still working on the details on that. But shout out to Charles who invited us out to South Bend on Friday. We had a great time. Saw the Cubs and the Whitecaps game. The Whitecaps unfortunately fell short in the loss, but it was good to see Eric Pinales pitch. And there was a couple. The Cubs have some really good high A prospects, but Charles was a great host. We got to know a little bit about the town too. How South Bend at one point was called the Silverhawks, and it was the reason why was because the Studebaker plant was in South Bend, and so his family had something to do with the history of bringing baseball there. And that's a great stadium, great stadium. And Four Winds is a great place to see games. So honestly, there's a lot of Cubs fans too, who are just the diehard minor league fans that were there. There was a series of four people who were, every time they did anything, they had like lightsabers and he would do stuff. But Charles showed us around town, and he was a great host. And then we got to meet, I believe it was Bruce, a fan who came up to us and showed us around town, or talked about an Italian restaurant unfortunately you get a chance to check out, but we will next time. But honestly, if you're in Western Michigan or wherever you are in the great state of Michigan, South Bend, and you don't like Notre Dame, and you want to check out a minor league game, go to South Bend, go to the Four Winds Field. That's a really good facility, and they do a really good job out there. So, I mean, if you can stand the "Go Cubs Go" for 30 seconds when you hear it, you're good to go. So, but yeah, that's a really good facility. Yes, plenty to get to today. Young, Gold, Perez, Job. There's a lot of things to cover. Like I said, I'm just waiting for Chris. Let me see if he's oh, I DM'd him. Let's see here. Would have sworn. Okay. There we go. The Tin Caps. No, that's Fort Wayne. That I think Fort Wayne will be next on our list. So right now we're gonna probably be heading out to Erie this weekend. More than likely, we're trying to figure the logistics out, but more than likely we will be in Erie starting on Friday. And I guess there's some big ex-presidents coming to town too, so it's gonna be a big cluster bleep to figure out exactly how the logistics will go on that. But yes, so plenty to get to. The Tigers also, by the way, I got to go to the Tigers game today. They won 3-1. Home runs from Torkelson and Ibanez, and yeah, that was it was a good win considering the last couple days were just kind of sour taste in mouth. Stan wanted to know how South Bend was, and South Bend was great. And Chris is now with us on the stream. South Bend, Chris, we really liked all the lifted trucks we saw in South Bend, but overall the facility is fantastic. That's a great stadium to watch a game. Food was great too.
Yeah, no, it was a very nice stadium. We kind of called it like a mix between Midland and Lansing, where it's got this kind of uniform shape like Midland, but in the heart of the downtown like Lansing, and it was yeah, nothing bad to say about it at all, other than I guess the concourses are a little bit cramped, and the radio booth it was a little bit tiny, but
Yeah.
it's hard to complain too much about that, and they apparently are adding a second floor for probably a lot of more suites and stuff like that. But yeah, terrific facility. South Bend's a cool town. We only spent a few hours there, but we had some fun. Big shout out to Charlie for showing us a good time. And yeah, a couple cool restaurants, a couple cool bars we hit up, and definitely want to make it kind of a yearly thing to get down there. Maybe catch a couple games next time.
Yeah, stay for like a whole weekend. That would be. We didn't really get a chance to really explore it, but some of the bars down in downtown, the what was the pub, the Irish pub,
We went to Fiddler's Hearth.
Fiddler's Hearth. That was a sweet pub, really cool. And then next door was the Mark's Oyster Bar or
Madison Oyster Bar.
Madison, yeah, Madison's Oyster Bar. Really inexpensive food too, and yeah, really good atmosphere. So shout out to Dan Hasty too, by the way, for having us on. Um,
I can't. I haven't looked at myself today. My hair looks ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, no. Thank you very much to Dan for. He gave us 4+ innings to ramble on the radio, which was nice. Also on Instagram Live, apparently. I don't know. One of those.
I know it was on Instagram. We were on Instagram Live. So yeah. So we saw the announcement today on Twitter. Now Twitter's switched the name of the X or whatever. I don't know what the hell they're going to call it here, but apparently it's going to be it's X.
No, it'll be Twitter.
Okay.
Just like Google is Alphabet, right? It's still Google. Like they can change the name all they want. People aren't going to be like, oh, it was Xing the other day, and I threw up a couple X's. Like, no, it's going to be Twitter. Good work.
Yeah,
way to ruin something. But anyway,
yeah. So yeah, the announcement came on Twitter this evening. So we had a couple things. We had first and foremost Jace Young going up to Erie, and after he went 3 for 4 today, had a real good game in West Michigan. He DH'd today, so he went out with a bang, literally. And so from there, Jackson Jobe got called up to West Michigan, and we were thinking it was going to happen this weekend because on Friday. But what I saw Friday too, we'll get to Troy Melton in a little bit, but Troy Melton did a hell of a job. It was a good start for him. Luke Gold goes from Lakeland to West Michigan, and Winfield Perez, who's on the 40-man roster, people tend to forget this, I think, in my opinion, goes from Erie to Toledo. And we'll get to his numbers, too. He has been playing better as of late, and so this is a good challenge for him. Sorry, Gibson Long, by the way, also went up to Erie, he went from Erie to Toledo earlier this week. So, we'll get to I think there's one. I feel like I'm missing one.
I think that's it.
Okay.
You got Perez, and then Young filled in for Perez, and then Gold is filling in for Young, and then Jobe is moving on his own. I think that's it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Elton.
Elton.
Yeah, thank you, Elton.
Exquisite.
I'm not sure where you live in Indiana, Elton, but we're out in South Bend. So next time, let us know if you're nearby that area. I'd like to meet up and
absolutely,
that'd be awesome.
We met
Bruce.
We met Bruce. Yes, that was fun.
That was a lot of energy. A lot of energy.
We love meeting you guys out there, and we can't thank you enough. Really, it's a whole different feel when we go out and go. I have to get gas, and we just go put it on the card, and you don't worry about. At least I don't worry about my wife yelling at me.
Yeah,
it feels so much better to be able to do that. So thank you guys so much. But it was kind of an exciting day for promotions. In terms of prospects, we as you said, we thought we might get Young this weekend. We thought we'd get lucky. We didn't, but he'll probably be in West Michigan for the rest of the year unless he absolutely goes bonkers and gets bumped to Erie for the playoffs, which wouldn't be bad. But we'll see him soon. So that's exciting news. It's kind of funny, the last 2 first-round picks before this year get moved on the same day, and it almost felt like the Young announcement overshadowed the Jobe announcement. I think, and maybe it should have, just because Jobe has already been to High A before. But I think they're both pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was funny too because all weekend he was hidden, and everybody was like, "Well, when is Young gonna come up to Erie?" And I was kind of like, I knew about it a couple days ago, and then there was somebody in Erie. I gave those pictures they used. I gave them those pictures based off some of the exchanges I had.
Yeah.
So
Well, and one of the questions at the very end of the when I was on there with Dan was is Young gonna go up to Erie? And I was like, I think he might be up by the end of this month. The end of this month, I'll say. But a lot of times we can discuss this later. But people are always saying, why is he not in Erie? Why is he not in Erie? And I can't answer it every time, but I just want to point out, and we've talked about this before. He has been hovering around 250 in terms of batting average all year, which is fine if you're hitting for power and not getting on base as he has, but that's not going to continue at higher levels. I think they wanted to see a little bit more consistency out of him, and maybe they just felt like he was finally getting there, or maybe they just felt like, all right, it's time to challenge him. But like I said, and I've done this before, and I sent it to people. You can look at a list of players in high A who are Jace Young's age, who have stats similar to him, the same sort of power, same type of walk rate, same type of strikeout rate. Nothing outrageous. And there are like 70 of them since 2006, and like 3 of them have been decent big leaguers. It's not as exciting as you'd like it to be, but you can hope. And one thing I've pointed out was that he hits a lot of deep fly balls in the Midwest League, which is not a great league for hitters.
Yeah.
We even saw,
on Friday night.
Charlie was saying that South Bend, he said he's seen, he was being a little bit exaggerating, but he said he's only seen a handful of home runs there, a couple handfuls of home runs there in all the games he's been there. We saw one, and the Whitecaps hit a couple this week. But the Eastern League's stadiums are a little bit more forgiving. And so it wouldn't shock me if Young actually starts hitting for more power. Maybe his average bumps up a little bit just because he's not playing in caverns. But as Charlie also pointed out, that might not help him a ton in Comerica. So we'll have to see.
There was a ball that Young hit the left. Remember that ball he hit on Friday night? That was like, a couple. But that one was the deep one where the guy made a nice catch in left field where that was, I think that would have been a home run probably out at West Michigan. But that kept it in there. But, yeah, that was an example of what you were talking about right there.
Yeah, but so it was definitely a fun trip. It was that that version of the Whitecaps team we saw is not the most loaded with prospects. We basically saw Young. We didn't get Campos. We didn't get Pacheco. I don't think Campos played for the rest of the weekend. So maybe he's a little bit banged up. I don't think he played today or yesterday. But we saw Young, perform, and it was interesting because I was talking about him, and a gentleman a couple seats in front of us turned around and started talking about it, and turned out he was the father of the pitcher that day, Brandon Birdsell, who was a teammate of Jace Young's at Texas Tech. So that was an interesting little conversation, but yeah, fun time at the park.
Stan wanted to know if does Young go regularly.
He does.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
In the air for the most part, but he'll hit the occasional line drive single to left center over shortstop. But he's kind of an old school. He really hits a lot of fly balls. He backspins the ball really well. It'll go to the warning track to all fields basically, and he does hit a lot. I think most of his home runs go to the pull field and occasionally to center. But yeah, he can hit the ball in the air all over the field.
Also, by the way, Kevin, I'm gonna try this again.
Sorry.
McDongle, was that close?
Kevin McGonigal.
McGonigal signed, so he signed a couple days ago, and that was one of the last picks that did not sign, and yeah, Walter Jenkins, by the way, somebody brought him up. We'll talk about that. We'll get to some of the questions here shortly, but I wanted to go right and dive into Toledo this week as they took on Lehigh Valley, and Cody Clemens decided to say, listen, I'm gonna make the Mud Hens my bitch this week, as the Mud Hens lost 1-5 against Lehigh Valley this weekend, and it was at home too, which was interesting because they go to St. Paul next, so that's gonna be a tough series for them. But yeah, again, the theme we keep talking about the Mud Hens: pitching, and they got Joey Wentz had a good start, but I don't know, Chris. Again, the consistency in Toledo continues to be elusive.
Yeah, I think getting Gibson Long up there is going to help a little bit with the rotation, but it seems like it's been the bullpen all year long. Like we talked about, the starting pitching isn't terribly exciting. They've added some more interesting names lately, but I think the Wentz game, I want to say they were down 1-0 or it was tied at 1, and the bullpen gave up 8 runs in the 9th inning. It was just a disaster, and so that's been a huge problem all year long. But yeah, I mean, Joey Wentz had an outstanding start. Alex Fido had a good start there before he came up to Detroit and pitched today, and then Gibson Long's debut was pretty solid, all things considered.
I thought Fido did a really good job of keeping San Diego off balance today. He did a really good job of mixing his stuff when he did get that for contact to get the double plays. He did. It was a good start for him, considering he coming off his start in Toledo, 5 innings, 1 run on 2 hits, a walk, and 9 strikeouts. And so he earned it today, and he did a really good job of not having the bullpen really involving the Mud Hens. Well, not Mud Hens bullpen to a certain extent. Jack O'Lothian got sent down to Double-A, And his final start in for Toledo, 5 innings, 6 hits, 5 runs, 4 home runs, and 6 strikeouts. That was his worst start of the season for him.
Yeah, worst start of his career, arguably. Like he actually still gutted out, I think, 5 innings, right? But
yeah,
it was funny because we were having our own little private discussion about him on on our prospect ranking list, and I was going to say, like, the one thing I like about him is in his career he hasn't given up many home runs. He's given up, I think, 10 total in his career. None at West Michigan this year, only 2 at Toledo, and then I didn't say it, and he gave up 4 home runs that day. It was like, oh my god, like that just is a bummer. I don't know if the wind was blowing out or what, but yeah, they sent him back to Erie, which we talked about a bunch of times. Like, he's not, I don't think, on in terms of organizational priorities, I don't think he's one of the top pitchers in the system in that regard. But I do think they like him, and they had a need in Toledo, and they thought he could handle it, and he did for the most part until that final start. And now that they have Gibson Long up in Toledo, they're able to put him back in Erie where he probably belongs. So it was kind of like a little sojourn to a tougher environment just to get a taste of it. But I think he'll do okay in Erie.
Yeah, I think he will too. And the bullpen, you're absolutely right. Talking about Matt Whistler had a bad week. Just same thing. It was a series of Zabala can't get it. I mean, he can locate. I mean, he didn't really, even small sample sizes, but Miguel Diaz continues to be a disappointment. Honestly, yep. I mean, he appeared in 2 games, couldn't really keep the ball in play, or excuse me, couldn't swing any misses, wasn't doing much at all.
Yeah, 7 earned runs and 1 in the 3rd inning this week.
Yeah,
not ideal from it. And it's the thing, we've seen him look good at times, but it's just not consistent. And like if there was one area of concern for me, it was like Scott Harris, and this is kind of minor, but like you would hope that they would have added more interesting players in AAA or been more successful with those guys. And really, I mean, you could argue that's what they did with Andy Ibanez, right? And Tyler Holton and those guys just happened to make the big leagues. But the rest of the guys they added just haven't done a whole lot of anything. And it's and I guess Diaz was in the system last year too, so it's not necessarily Scott Harris, but yeah, Whistler, as you said, hasn't been great, and
Blair
Calvo,
yeah.
So,
and I forgot they signed Brian Sammons, who had a good. I mean, he had a decent start, but a lot of these names are just like. I'm trying not to sound like a dick, but they're kind of forgettable. I mean, really, it's been a series of who's among minor league free agents, and they just keep churning them out. As far as the offense goes this week for Toledo, a little different story. Parker Meadows having a strong week, batting .316. He went 6 for 19. Donnie Sands also had a pretty good week off this night, 5 for 15 in 4 games of work. And good to see Grant Witherspoon, who has struggled, and a good week in terms of walks, even 5 walks to 3 strikeouts. That's another thing about Parker Meadows this week, 4 walks to 4 strikeouts. And Justin Hemmerloy, who was on the IL, was supposed to be off. And
he came back today.
Yeah, came back today. And the $1 million question now becomes, does he go to Detroit soon? I think right now, if there's one thing about this weekend series against the Padres that kind of really, I'm not gonna lie, I've been very just kind of conservative about calling them up based off the transition from Toledo to the major leagues. But at this point right now, Tigers are 12 games under 500, and they are at a point now too where it's either some of these guys have to make some decisions on, and I think there's going to be, whether it's Malloy or Keith or something to that effect. I think by the end of the month, we should see either. I think I'm going to go because Parker Meadows is on the 40-man. I think Parker will be on soon, called up in the next week or 2. And that's just, again, that's not me knowing anybody or anything in that regard. The numbers indicate he deserves a call up at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking at him right now, not including today, since June 1st. So we're going on 6 weeks, 7 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Almost 2 months. He's hitting 291. The advanced stats say 291, 355, 552. That's a 261 ISO. It's a 9.7% walk rate. It's a WRC plus of 118. That's, he's not destroying the league, but he's playing pretty darn well, basically to the level he was playing last year in Double-A, right? So, and I think you mentioned on the Motor City Metrics podcast that he's pretty much he's not conquered lefties, right? But he's performing just as well against lefties as he is against righties this year, which is a good sign for him.
Yeah, and you look at the outfield situation right now in Detroit, outside of Green, it's still. I mean, Carpenter actually today had a really good throw from right field that kind of surprised me.
He's got a pretty strong arm, actually.
Yeah.
If baseball savant is to be believed.
Yeah, and that was it. Even right now, too, you have to make a decision on Akil Baddoo, and I got some flack for in the chat on Thursday about whether he's a regular major league player or not. Again, is he a good bench bat? Yes, but I mean, at this point, who would you send down? Maybe Baddoo, maybe. I think it's going to be after the trade deadline too, because they might whoever they're going to trade for. And Deadly Ninja Bee said, "Well, the Tigers trade for a catching prospect." Yes, I'm gonna look. You look at the catching situation right now down in the minors. I talked about this on Thursday a little bit. Dingler is out, and they had to bring up a guy from the development league who's like 23 years old a couple days ago. Alonzo Rubalcaba.
Yeah.
And it is one of those things where they have to. They're just right now the depth that shows shot. You expect Mike Rottenberg to get a call to West Michigan. He had his 12th home run of the season earlier today. Was it?
Yeah, I think he hit 2 home runs today. I want to say that, he seems to have conquered his low A demons. There's still a lot of swing and miss there. I don't know if he's going to be more than an org guy, right? But it's kind of comical now down in low A. He's hitting home runs every game.
There is a catcher I mentioned in the Brewers system because the Brewers are looking for an ace. Jefferson Guerrero, he's going to be a top 100 prospect at some point. He is playing up those kind of numbers at 20 years old at Double-A. By the way, if you've not, go to our website, tigersmlreport.com, and check out our trade pieces, part 2 and part 1. Chris did the both NL West and AL West and the Reds. And I did the Brewers and both divisions, both East divisions. So, was there another team you did, Chris? I feel like there was.
No, I did. Yeah, okay. You got it right. I did the Reds. I did the Astros, the Rangers, and then the Dodgers, Giants, and Diamondbacks. And, it's all speculation. Who knows how much you're actually going to get for a rental. We think that teams will pay a decent amount, but we were trying to find that happy medium where they're not giving away one of their top prospects, not like a top 50 guy or whatever, but also giving up something of substance, because that's what I would think I think there'll be enough of a market for Rodriguez that you're going to have to put up a decent offer there. But yeah, and we know how these things go, right? He'll end up getting traded to like San Diego or the Angels or somebody we didn't account for at all.
There'll be a team that comes out of nowhere, like maybe the Yankees or something to that effect. I don't know. Or even Toronto. You know what? Would it be interesting too if Boston just comes out of nowhere too?
Yeah, he's certainly got a history there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll take Roman Anthony.
Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Outfield preference. They wouldn't give him up, I don't think. But yeah. So we'll see what goes on there. We were talking about the offense in Toledo. You mentioned Donnie Sands had a pretty good week. But Colt Keith had probably his worst week since, I don't know, first 2 weeks of the season in Erie.
Yeah.
Just what did he do? 4 for 21? 4 for 21 with a double. The double was damn near a home run. It was like a line drive to center field, but 2 walks and 9 strikeouts. He just looked a little lost at the plate this week, taking a lot of fastballs right down the heart of the plate. It was strange. So I don't know. He just seems a little bit off. But we've talked about this before. This seems to be the pattern with Keith when he goes up a level. Normally he doesn't, first couple games he hit those 2 monster home runs and everybody's like, oh, all right, here we go. But typically he struggles for a couple weeks before he settles in and is fine. So I think he'll be okay. But it was a tough week for him.
You and I talked about this Friday at the game. What about the fact that maybe he's experienced a little fatigue? Because this is the longest he's played in his pro career so far.
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, we were trying to figure out how many games he'd played. And yeah, he'd topped out at like 60 games, right? 65, 70.
Yeah.
And he's up over 80 now. So I'm sure that's probably playing a little bit into it. Also, it's baseball. It's very hard. Sometimes you're going into a slump. he may be giving these pitchers too much credit. Like,
Yeah.
he's looking for the junk and they're throwing the fastballs, and I don't know. But as you said, we fully believe in Colt Keith's hit tool and his power potential, and I think he'll be fine soon. He just had a rough week.
Yeah. Again, it's just you don't think about the fatigue thing until it didn't occur to me until I realized that he missed. I mean, he was out from May until Arizona Fall League, and he's been playing since the So if you think about it, too, he's been playing since the Arizona Fall League nonstop, plus getting extra reps in spring training.
Yeah, and we knew he worked really hard in the offseason to drop some of the weight that he had gained for the AFL, and so he probably is a little bit tired, and I don't know. We'll see. I think he'll be fine in a couple weeks, so not too much to worry there.
Yeah, and like I said, the Mud Hens move on to play St. Paul next, or before they come home for beginning of August. So if you're looking, actually, I'm sorry, they go to Iowa right after that. So they go back to Iowa, and so we don't see Winfield Perez in a Mud Hens uniform until the 8th when they take on Columbus, and they have a home series of Columbus and Omaha following 2 weeks after that. So let us move on to Erie, where the SeaWolves continue to be a team where there's not a dull moment in Erie. And I know people are asking if we talked about Justice Bigby, and Justice Bigby has been the talk of the town now for the last few weeks. I mean, a little longer than that. I mean, the whole season, honestly. No, Aiden, that's right. Yeah, Uper might probably will end up going and see him. But as far as that goes, this week against Binghamton's not one of, they really don't have any prospects. They're not a good team, but for whatever reason, it's also in the middle of, as someone told us, hell, New York. They split the series with the Rumble Ponies. I still think I'm sorry, that that's a stupid name. They
sorry. Used to just be the Binghamton Mets, but
yeah,
I'm sure it's related to some, maybe they made trucks there or something. I don't know.
But no. Hey, we gotta be a wacky minor league team to get some more tickets, and so feels like that's what it was. But however, here's the thing too. They were shut out. They were shut out twice against the Rumble Ponies, and that just makes zero sense to me. But there were some individual pitchers performances we can talk about, and I think one of the best parts about this week is Flores was hitting 96, 97. So Blood Right, by the way, thank you for the $5.
Exquisite.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if Ty Madden ends up being the pitcher of the week in the Eastern League. He pitched on Tuesday, and I was going to clip it together, and I had it all, and then he pitched again today and tied his career high with 10 strikeouts. So I was like, well, all right, I'll just put that one up. By the way, right before the show went on, I uploaded 5 videos. You can see Sawyer Gibson Long's AAA debut. You can see Ty Madden's 10 strikeout game. You can see our Troy Melton appearance in 4K from behind home plate. You can see Wilmer Flores. We'll talk about him in a minute. He did touch 97 in that game. And that was actually one of his worst by the numbers, Wilmer Flores' worst outings since April. But you can kind of see how it happened. Basically, there was a seeing eye single, kind of an infield single off the glove of the shortstop, and then he gave up a 3-run bomb. And after that, there was just a little bit of wildness, but he really battled through that, and I think that was something like encouraging you see from that. Sometimes not every one of these videos is going to be a guy dominating the other team, but to see him, he was almost gone in the second inning. He was up to like 28 pitches, and he came back and completed 5 after that, and I thought it was pretty impressive.
That was, he battled back, and it kind of shows the kind of the thing he's been doing all year long, where when he struggles with spots, he ends up finding a way to come back from it pretty strong. And it was interesting too. We're talking about by the way, the Pena video, I literally just have to upload it now. So Carlos Pena, Stan's favorite left-handed starter, had a good start. We'll get to that a little later. But Matt on the week, by the way, 9 2/3 innings, 5 hits, 1 run, and 18 strikeouts. Yeah, that's a pretty good week.
I can't get it to do anything. I'm gonna put a hat on here in a second. But yeah, it was interesting because part of Ty Madden reminds me a little bit of Alex Faedo at times, because he's kind of a little bit of homer prone, but when he has his slider, he's really good. And he had his slider in this most recent outing today, and Binghamton couldn't do a whole lot with it. I think he actually did give up a home run on the slider. It was a hanger, but other than that, they were waving a lot of sliders. And I don't know if he's going to be ready for promotion here. I think that the entire rotation could arguably get promoted if they wanted to, right? We've talked about it before. They all have really interesting stuff. They've all performed pretty well this year. It's just a matter of do they think it's beneficial for them? And maybe we'll see that down the line. I don't think that the pitching depth in the organization is strong enough to kind of backfill Erie at that point. And I don't know if they care that much, but I don't think they want to leave West Michigan with nobody pitching in Erie with I not to be mean, but it would be like Carlos Pena, and it would be Troy Melton, and it would be my inner Elvis.
Thank you very much.
Stan said I'm struggling with my inner Elvis, and Deadly Ninja B says I look like I'm about to be struck by lightning. And both of these things are true. I think you could make the case for Ty Madden to get promoted for sure. I just don't know if they're going to do it based on if they think it's terribly necessary or not.
Yeah, it really depends on whether or not Pena has pitched in Erie before. So, and then but you're right though. If you call what's left in Lakeland to West Michigan, it's not really.
Honestly, it really is just about bodies at that point. Like they could call Pena, he'd probably be fine in Double-A. But the other guys they have pitching in West Michigan right now are Willie Ender Moreno, who's kind of a reliever pressed into starting duties, and Melton, who
just got called up.
Yeah, so it's there's really not enough bodies there, unfortunately.
And this is why a signee like Lyle Lockhart has come into play, and he had another good start.
Yeah, he had two really good starts in a row. Yeah. What is he? 6 innings this last outing?
Yep, 2 runs, 3 walks, and 7 strikeouts. He's cut his walks down significantly since coming over from the Dodgers or from Tulsa, which he was walking. His walk rate was ridiculous.
Yeah, the change in his numbers is dramatic from leaving the Dodgers organization as a reliever and coming to the Tigers organization and moving into a starting role. It's like night and day. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
He doesn't light up the radar gun or anything like that, but he throws a lot of strikes and he's got a pretty good breaking ball. And I don't know. He's been very helpful. He's kind of the Brady Allen pitcher equivalent, like if you will. Like he's really helped that rotation.
Yeah, that's a guy who I'm going to try to seek out and talk to this weekend when we head out to Erie, because I think that's an important story to talk about, because he has come in at a time where you have that flexibility of probably calling up another arm or two to Toledo if need be, because in terms of whether or not it really depends what you plan on doing in Lakeland too, because there's a couple arms that maybe could go to West Michigan, but again, we'll look at that a little later. And Kyle Montero, another good start for him. 5 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, struck out 5, and he had 2 walks. But the bullpen, Erie's bullpen is, from the Jesus to Madison. Tyler Madison, by the way, is just pure filth. He had 4 innings of work this week, 8 strikeouts, but over his last 2 weeks, Tyler Madison's numbers are even more impressive. So you're talking about a guy here over 6 innings of work, because he didn't pitch that much in the last 6 innings, 10 strikeouts, 3 walks, and it's given Erie some much needed depth in their bullpen that they didn't have in the first part of the season. So you have that guy in your bullpen for the playoffs. That's going to help a lot. Between him,
0 hits this week, right?
Yeah, 0 hits, and he didn't give up a hit last week either. And Andrew Mango has been pitching pretty well as of late too.
He has, we've talked about Blake Holub a lot. He fell back to earth a little bit, but that's another good arm in the bullpen. They really do have good arms and good performances down there. One thing I wanted to mention before I forgot, and maybe this is a good time for you to pull this up. If you pull up Ty Madden's MILB page, I think some people are familiar with. You can see it, the mid pitch face. It's a very unfortunate look for most people because it's just not a good time to take a picture. And if you look at Ty Madden's, it looks exactly like that funny Instagram filter or Snapchat filter that people put on in movies to get like the funny, you know what I'm talking about? I think, Look at that face right there in the middle. It looks exactly
Yeah.
like it to me. Like there's a whole scene of people doing A Few Good Men with that filter face. I'm like, oh, poor Ty man. But
Yeah, that's classic.
you-
That's a good picture right there.
but yeah, I mean, Jackson Jobs looks kind of funny. Roberto Campos has always been hilarious. He's
Yeah.
like screaming and his eyes look too close together. But whatever. Anyway, I digress. People at home, go ahead and check it out.
So we did get a question in there. Do players in Lakeland get their housing paid for by the Tigers?
Well, I think they stay. I don't know if they have to stay at the dorms there in Lakeland.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they get paid for it if they live off the dorms or if they even can. But yeah, uh, the teams do now provide money for housing for I believe all levels.
Yeah.
So it's one of the welcome changes in minor league baseball over the last couple of years.
The the comp, that's another good comp right there.
Muscle Bill pace, yeah.
Yeah, that's I'll go with that. If you're curious, in case you're wondering what Fire Marshal Bill was from In Living Color in the '90s, yeah, that's definitely yeah.
Let me show you something.
Let me show you something. Yeah, that's a good character reference there. All right, so anyway, getting back to the bats in Erie, one of the bats we were just talking about just briefly was Justice Bigby, and we're gonna have to start coming up with some comic names or whatever we have. He had a good week, 7 for 20 at the plate, 2 home runs. One was an opposite field blast. OPS over 1,000, 350, 391, 650, and that was in terms of. And then Julio Rodriguez had a good week too. But outside of that, Chris Myers had a good game. But after that, it was just kind of like a drop off a little bit.
Yeah, it was. Well, that's part of the reason you end up getting shut out twice, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good week for Bigby. Like we talked about it, so much of his power goes to the opposite field. Like he's like an old school upright swing, backspin the ball deep to right center to right field. It's really impressive. Yeah, and like people say not enough people are talking about him. We talked about him. We have our updated top 30 coming out.
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it, but I believe he is
He's
14th or 15th on our list.
Oh, damn it, Chris. I was going to tell you not to say it, but.
No, well, I mean, we haven't put it out yet because we're waiting to see what happens from the trade. But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be impressed by what he's doing. You watch him, and he just seems like he knows how to hit, and he's got that natural power to all fields. And we were trying to come up with comps for him there in South Bend because it's hard to. Because I think it's plus raw power, but because it's such an opposite field approach, it plays more like average to above average. Like he's going to end up with 20 home runs this year. But I feel like if he pulled the ball more, he could hit 25 plus.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's like a 45 hit, 55 power maybe, with average-ish defense in the corner outfield. It's an interesting dilemma there. But yeah, like he has a really natural feel for hitting the ball the other way, which is something you don't see in a lot of guys.
But even his arm, he actually has a decent arm in the outfield. Somebody asked about that in Discord. It was better than Carpenter's. I think it's serviceable. I mean, to say it politely, or to say it at all, I really don't think it. He's not going to be a liability
on the field. Yeah, it's no, he's been arguably the most pleasant surprise in the system this year.
Yeah. As far as the rest of Erie's offense, though, since Keith has left, it was like with the joke that AJ Hinch said to Greg, "Tell Gabe I'm sorry we took Cole Keith from you."
Yeah. It's Cole Keith was the engine driving the offense. Dingler was hurt too. We haven't seen a ton of like Diego Rincones. Workman was gone. They brought back Daniel Cabrera. There's a lot of Danny Soretti hasn't really found his footing yet.
Bemel Jerry had a bad week too. He went 0 for 18 with 10 strikeouts.
That's tough,
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
You know what? Binghamton might be the closest stadium to where he grew up.
Oh yeah, it's true.
I think, or was he in Rhode Island? I don't know, but
no, he was. I think he was in New York. I think.
Yeah. Well, we talked to him about that, but yeah, no, it's it's a tough week. Hard out there to hit, but I think Jace Young will probably provide them a boost if he can be a little bit more consistent at the plate, and that'll certainly help. So yeah, it'll be interesting that they still have managed to play well. That pitching staff is going to carry them. The starters are good. Even Brant Herter has been struggling, but he's not been getting blown up. Right? He's not nearly as sharp as he was at the beginning of the year. We talked about Flores, battling through his rough outing. We mentioned Madden being really good this week. We mentioned Lockhart, and you mentioned we touched on Montero. Montero has just been good consistently. I think he's like 8-2 now. Like, we don't care about records really, but that shows you something. He's only had 2 or 3 rough outings in Erie, and the rest of them have been pretty outstanding. So
I think he's been Erie's best pitcher. I mean, I think it's fair to say.
I agree.
So we were asked in this chat, when's the last game of the season for some of these minor league teams? Stan was asking. So Toledo's September 24th. Erie is I think Erie and West Michigan are both September 17th. And the other,
right.
and Lakeland I'm not sure about, but yeah, that's the not including the postseason for Erie, rather, because Erie is going to be in the postseason. So
well, and theoretically, all the other teams have a chance to make the postseason too, because they're all split seasons. I haven't checked the standings. I don't know if anybody is really threatening that at the moment, but Erie, we know for sure, is going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I haven't really. West Michigan's been kind of hit and miss for the last couple of weeks in terms of wins. Oh, so West Michigan, by the way, is September 10th. So I'm assuming Lakeland will probably be around the same.
Yeah, that's usually, and you know what happens? The final 3 weeks of the season in the Florida or the Gulf Coast League, Florida Complex League, and Florida State League, they get like 4 games in. It just turns into a monsoon season down there, and like all the games get canceled. So their final game could be August 29th for all we know.
Yeah, exactly. There's a good chance, as a friend of the show, Sherry, was telling us, that the reason why July blows so bad in Florida is because it's either going to be really, really sunny and muggy, or it's going to rain all day with violence.
Yeah.
So
it's not great.
No, it's not great. But so getting back to the swing of things, we now head down to, we're just talking about South Bend, and the Whitecaps split the series three games apiece, as they got some strong pitching on the start of the series on Tuesday, and then they came back and got shut out. But that start on Tuesday was Carlos
Pena, right?
Yeah. And again, I cut it up. I just got to upload it. 5 innings, 8 strikeouts, and no walks. That's the important part of that. He's
5 perfect innings, right? No hits, no walks.
Yeah, perfect innings. Yeah, struggled with walks a little bit. And we had a chance to also see Eric Pinales pitch in person on Friday. Really good, big arm, but the problem is they cannot locate his off speed to save his life. And he had the one strikeout he did have was the first changeup he landed, or first, I want to say changeup or slider. I can't remember what it was. That was the first time he landed a strike on that. So, but yeah, the Whitecaps, in terms of offensively speaking, Brady Allen Friday too made a really good play from cutting down the second run attempt they tried to score on. But outside of that, Chris, in terms of offense, or let's just stick with pitching first. Anything else stood out to you this week with the Whitecaps?
Well, let's see. We saw Melton, right? And it's like the 3rd time we've seen him, and it's interesting because the stuff is good. The fastball is steadily 93, 96, right? And he'll show you 4 or 3 different secondary pitches. They're all flash, kind of useful above average maybe, but nothing super consistent. But the one thing he's doing is he's throwing a ton of strikes, almost to his detriment. I feel like he threw too many strikes there. He's probably not locating within the zone the way he needs to. But it's an impressive arm, and got hit by a couple really good prospects for the Cubs. But other than that, he's another one where we're kind of impressed by his ability to fight back through some adversity there in that game. And also, he had a long in between innings, because the South Bend Cubs did this kind of tribute to a kid who's it was kind of a sad thing that was like, geez, it's this kid who was born prematurely and his twin brother died, and they let him run around the bases and slept 5 with everybody. It was kind of cool, but it was like, why are they doing this in the 3rd inning? It felt like something you could do, I don't know, a more natural stopping point, but in any event, so Melton had to deal with that, and so it was just like a 10-minute, 15-minute add to his already, sitting down. But yeah, other than that, it wasn't nothing really stood out to me. Workman had that one nice game to begin the week, but then didn't do a whole lot after that. We saw Pacheco hit a 3-run homer later in the week.
Yeah.
And Young had a couple good games and got promoted, but then we got Luis Santana hit a home run today. That's his first home run with West Michigan. But yeah, as you said, like I'm struggling to even remember some of the pitching outings from the other starters there this week. It just wasn't not a whole lot going on. Will Kell pitched pretty well. 5 innings, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts. That's good.
Connor Holden continues to pitch well.
Yeah, Connor Holden. Michael Beanline's back there. Dario Gardea. It's we also saw Trevin Michael. He had a rough week.
Yeah.
But you did see, he was spinning up a 3,300 RPM breaking ball there. It's pretty impressive, but the results haven't really been there all year.
So, in terms of is Pacheco improving, that home run was nice to see because that was the first time that outside of Lansing, it feels like there was from a way park standpoint.
I haven't noticed any obvious improvements with Pacheco. He kind of looks the same as he has for the last 2-3 months. It's the ability is there, just a lot of swing and miss, and not enough consistent contact. But the power is obvious, and when you see it, it's fun. And the defense has been solid, even at shortstop. But I would call this a kind of a stagnation year for him.
Yeah, and in terms of offense outside of Young, and Santana, it was kind of a rough week for the bats. Crouch, watching Don Johnson too. He had some really bad at bats on Friday.
Yeah, Dom Johnson is a bummer because he's very fast, and when he makes contact, he hits the ball very hard, surprisingly hard for a kid who's like 5'8". But yeah, I don't think he recognizes spin very well. I don't think he handles velocity terribly well. It's a lot of swing and miss with him, and he's not as good of an outfielder as you would expect.
Yeah,
he's okay, but he's a left fielder mostly, and it's just you hope he can improve with time. We've seen some guys take a little while to figure it out, but I don't know. I'm excited to see Max Gold in West Michigan. Luke Gold, I'm sorry, not Max Gold. Luke Gold, because he going on 2 months down in Lakeland was hitting like 360 with power. So he's a guy who deserves a shot. I think based on draft pedigree, you would have liked if Peyton Graham had figured out a way to make it up to West Michigan, but he's been injured and hasn't been performing terribly well. So give it to the guy who deserves it, and it's good to see. But I don't know if he'll be able to fill Jace Young's shoes terribly well, but we'll have to. Only time will tell there.
Yeah, between him and Santana, looks like they'll probably fill the void there. So let's move on to Lakeland. As Lakeland also got a split against Dunedin against the Blue Jays, and they won big today, 10-4. So
that's a big 10-4, good buddy.
Yeah, that's a big 10-4.
Yeah, breaker.
10-4. Steph Stevenson has been having
homer of the year, right?
Yeah, he's been having a good week too. Stepping up, Ian Gold. No, I just made it Luke Gold or Luke Gold.
we're both Ian Gold, former Belleville running back / Michigan linebacker / Denver Broncos, I think. Yeah. Some interesting offensive performances. We talked about. Lakeland went from this kind of sad sack team to reeling off 12 consecutive wins and hitting all sorts of bombs, and it's kind of funny. We talked about Rothenberg earlier, but Carlos Pellegrin is or Pellegrin, this Cuban kid.
3 from 4 today.
Has 3 home runs this week, I think. Yeah. He's an outfielder. He's really tooled up, like more tools than Jose de la Cruz. So it's exciting to see him produce, and he was starting to do that at the beginning of the year, but got hurt. So that's exciting. You got the classic Christian Santana with like an 847 OPS, but batting 188 because he hit a home run and a double and then walked 3 times, and that's just kind of who he is. But yeah, Rothenberg 3 home runs. The classic Rothenberg too. 3 for 21, 3 home runs, 2 walks and 11 strikeouts. So, but they're bombing the ball down there, which is at least kind of fun, right? That's if you're gonna you're gonna strike out a lot, you might as well hit some home runs too.
Yeah, that makes it a lot more interesting. And Pellegrin, the thing about Pellegrin too is if there's one thing about he does kind of stand out a little bit. He is 23. You kind of forget that he's been there. He's been in a system since 2021. But the reason why I'm not really sure why he hasn't really gone higher up beyond where he's. It just. I mean, I know he has been either in rookie ball or excuse me, in complex ball, and at some point, I would hope that they would bring him up to West Michigan and at least get some sort of flavor to that. But it might wait till next year. But I guess it's 23. It feels like he was the late signing. But as far as Sam was asking, have Latino signings have been a disappointment overall? No. I mean, again, you look at Kyler Montero, you look at Roberto Campos, Wilmer Flores comes to mind too. Yes, but a lot of them, I don't know. It's too early to tell on some of the newer ones, but there's a few that are just org fodder at this point, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean it's Pellegrin and Jose De La Cruz and Edinso Reyes and guys like that are all kind of you're hopeful for the tools, but as Roger's saying that they're getting older, and you'd like to see them reach the upper minors at some point. But yeah, I mean Santana has been a disappointment this year. He's performed better over the last month or so, but it's still better for him is hitting 200 with patience and power instead of hitting 100 with patience and power, and you need to see that get better. Yeah, but some of the younger guys, we'll talk about the complex league. There's a lot of impressive performances there, so that's something to hang your hat on. But again, it's the lowest level of stateside ball, so you can't project too much on it.
And Carlos, by the way, Carlos Mercado had another strong start. 5 innings, 2 hits, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. And so it looks like he's going to finish the month lowering his ERA is going to be under 2 for the month right now, currently at 1.80. And he's a guy who just turned 20. Maybe they call him out to West Michigan. Who knows? Colin Fields also is another guy who had a good outing this week, just four innings, but still 2 hits, 4 strikeouts. And he was drafted, I believe, last. Was he a signing?
I think Fields was an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, that's minor league free agent signing. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, the big news this week, right, was Jackson Jobe pitching,
right?
And we have now he's off to West Michigan. We don't get the fun data on him anymore, at least not publicly.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was. I put it all together, thanks to Jerry and thanks to just to our ability to put it into a Google sheet or whatever. But yeah, it got to the point where he was dominating in a way that you would hope he would. And I think I want to say the whiff rate on his slider is about 67%. I'm trying to find it right now. Let's see. But yeah, the fastball whiff rate whiff rate is good. The cutter, his new cutter, is playing really well. He throws a sinker a little bit. Probably needs to shelf that eventually, or just he doesn't feature it very much, but it doesn't miss any bats.
Right.
But maybe that's you want that. You want to roll up a ground ball, and he also has something that is labeled as a curveball that doesn't get any swings and misses, but he gets a lot of called strikes with it. So it may be more of a, throw it at the top of the zone and have it drop in pitch. But all the data suggests that, yeah, he's ready for high A and should be pretty damn fun to watch. So I'm excited about that.
One of the things too, I was looking at for some of the kind of like diamonds in the rough, if you will, among some of the data we have, and in terms of pitching data. So the reason I was I looked into it a little bit is because I was trying to figure out exactly, okay, some of these arms that are down there are very raw. They're they still have to really kind of, they need some work. And
Yep.
so, like, for example, like Chris Williams Jr., like his velocity on his fastballs, it's like 92.4.
He's a lefty, so you can get away with sort of get away with it. But yeah, most of the guys they drafted last year, the pitchers, it's hard to pick out any of them and go say, hey, that's the guy, that's the one who's taken the step forward. Somebody probably will eventually, next year maybe, but You got like Quinn Goditis and Cole Patton and Cole Stepp, and some of these guys have some interesting raw numbers in terms of velocity or spin rate, but nobody's really like dominated by any stretch of the imagination. So it's tough to go into the data and be like, yeah, this guy's really interesting. It's
Like
just not.
one of them is Iker, who he is. Yeah, that guy's got some interesting
Hiker, who
numbers. Yeah, Iker,
who is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a
Who's he?
minor league free agent signing, I think, from like the Rockies organization. It's
from the Mets, or like
the Mets.
Mets and Twins too.
He was a free agent, so yeah. I mean, it's sometimes that happens. I think that the Bautista, the closer for the Orioles, was once upon a time was a minor league free agent signing, but yeah, it's I don't know. I can't really say anything nice about these guys because there's nobody who really stands out. We talked about Marcano. Marcano's kind of exciting. Some of the big arms we like, Marco Jimenez and Ulysses Campos, haven't performed well, and I think they might both be hurt right now. So it's just kind of a hodgepodge.
It's a hodgepodge, and guys like even like Jesus Cruz, who they some I mean, he's got good strikeout numbers, but some of it's again, and they also used, for whatever reason too. Ever since I noticed this a couple of weeks ago, they used Trey Cruz for Jesus Cruz for his picture.
Photo?
So, for his photo. Yeah. So
maybe it's Trey Cruz's alter ego. Well, to Chris Gaines, it goes down to pitch in Lakeland.
Yeah, it doesn't have the hair and everything though, but it is kind of, there's some numbers in there that indicate that they have some work to do, but maybe they can pull something out of that. So then tonight, let's go look at the complex league real quick, Chris, because in terms of looking at it every day, honestly, I maybe look at it once or twice a week because in terms of data or vote video or anything like that. But this week coming up, based off some of the signings, we may see some. I might be paying attention a little bit more.
Yeah, well, and there were definitely some exciting rehab assignments. I don't know about exciting, but it was good to see that Peyton Graham was back playing, Ryan Kreidler was back playing, Dylan Smith pitched for the first time since April, so that was nice to see. But yeah, you're right. There's going to be a ton of. This is where all the draft picks are going to play, at least to start the year. And that's a good point you bring up, because I want to mention something, and I've talked about this guy multiple times this year, Josue Briseño, right? He is performing quite well this year. In last week he was 5 for 19 with a homer, 3 walks, 3 strikeouts. So kind of pedestrian for him, an 890 OPS. But overall this season, I'm pulling it up right now. I want to see. I think it's still over 1,000. So.
I know this record doesn't matter either, but the Complex Tigers are in first place.
Nice. It helps. So Briseño has a 1,022 OPS, right? 346 average, 4 home runs, walking about as much as he strikes out. I keep pointing out, like, hey, this is really interesting, but I also want to reiterate that he does not turn 19 until September. He is a month younger than Kevin McGonigal. If Kevin McGonigal were hitting 346 in the Florida Complex League with 4 home runs, we'd all be like, this kid is legit, right? Like, so I think people should really start paying attention to Briseño a little bit more. Yeah. Not that, again, I'm not guaranteeing that anything is going to happen. The Complex League is much easier than full season ball, but he's putting up numbers and that are very impressive for a kid his age, and he's enormous. We saw a picture shared with us by was it Terry?
Yeah,
he got like a full grown man beard. He's like the size of Lurch.
I thought he looked like 35. I swear to God, I thought he was 30. Like, he looked like he was 30s.
He's a big dude. So
let me go see if I can find him real quick here.
I think catching's not in his future, but a left-handed hitting first baseman with power and patience, I think down the road that could be fun. And so as Deadly Ninja B said, can he actually catch? I don't think. I mean, I've never watched him catch. Yeah. He had 2 throwing errors the other day. He's kind of splitting his time between catching, DH, and first base. Just based on how big he is right now at 18, I find it hard to believe. But I don't know. Maybe if he can, then they've got something.
Yeah, there's a good possibility that he plays first base. Probably first.
So. Who knows? Maybe he's a DH down the road. But
yeah.
But I mean, this is not like he's a nobody, right? He got one of their bigger bonuses last year. I think he had like the 3rd highest bonus behind Javier Osorio and Samuel Heel.
And by the way, props to Terry because she just had her knee surgery,
Yeah.
so she's coming back already and just kind of doing her thing
And
already.
and the other interesting one, we haven't talked about this much, but you were able to sneak him into kind of the back of your top 50 prospects or whatever. Is Clayton Campbell, the New Zealand kid, who we don't know if there's anything there really, but he's really performing well. He's got, what did it was say, 14 doubles in 20 games, something like that.
Yeah.
He's just a doubles machine this year, and so his OPS is 1089, I think, 1009. So 2 home runs, 14 doubles in 20 games. Just hit 325. There's another international signing, right? I think not super heralded, and we don't know if he's actually a prospect or anything like that, but he's performing pretty well, and he doesn't turn 21 until September.
All right, so I found a decent picture of well, here, yeah, I did find one of I'm drawing a blank on his name all of a sudden.
Briseño?
Yeah, Briseño, yeah. Let's see here. Okay. I'll pull it up right now. De La Cruz, bullpen. Yeah, when she did, yeah, there we go. Okay.
Right,
Here we go. This is, yeah, he's a big boy.
This is
It's not good.
for the viewers, not the watchers.
Yeah.
Or wait, no, not the listeners.
Yeah, not the listeners. There's a picture. Yeah, so we pulled up a picture of him, but yeah, there's.
Wait, that's not him, is it? He's right. He's lefty. Or is he a
Oh
switch
no,
hitter?
it says. Oh, maybe she named it wrong then. It's not him.
Because there was the Instagram feed, right, that had the pictures of him. He was a big bearded gentleman. But
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what it is now. Then,
that could be him with the catching gear on. I don't know.
according to this, it says it's Dana De La Cruz.
Oh, Daniel De La Cruz, yeah.
Yeah.
In any event, he's a big, strong kid, hitting well, got some power, got some patience. Younger than Kevin McGonigal, only a couple months older than Max Clark. I think people, you're right to be like sort of optimistic about him and think of him as a guy who's somebody to follow in the future.
Yeah, Nomar Fanya.
Nomar Fana, yeah.
Yeah, that's another guy that.
He's an outfielder, right?
Yeah. It's another guy too that's been having some good numbers in the complex league, but yeah, again, it's sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. I'm gonna go ahead and stop this because So somebody mentioned my guy Todd Howard mentioned that Briseño is also from the same place as Mickey. Did not know that. That's a good fun fact there.
Yeah, they grow them well down there. The
Okay.
Rapus.
All right, so I did find a better picture of Briseño. I'm not enough as soon as I close the window.
Well, hey, that's the way it works.
Yeah, there. Look at him.
You close the window, you open a door.
Yeah. Look how tall this guy is. Look at that.
There you go. Yeah. That's a big boy. That's still not the one that we saw earlier, but you get the idea.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? He has an Instagram, so there you go. I gotta just do this.
Sweet.
Yeah, look at him. Huge.
Yeah, he's a big kid, and like I said, should be interesting to see if he can continue to perform like this at the same age as all these first round, second round draft picks. Be fun to watch. But
yeah,
I digress. He's been the guy that I check in on his box scores. Raylan Perez is still down there. He's been struggling. Gil, we talked about Gil Heel. He's been performing well, but there's zero power there, which was kind of the book on him anyway, coming out of the international market. He's got some steals. He's hitting for average, taking some walks, but I think 4 extra base hits. The ISO's like under .050. He's I made the Sergio Alcantara kind of comp, but I've never seen him play defense, so who knows? But I don't know. And then you got the Dominican and the Dominican leagues. We look at those numbers and go, that's fun. We talked about it before. Like some of their signings from this year are doing well. Enrique Jimenez, Christian Perez, Anibal Salas, they're all doing pretty well. Michael Orozco is performing well, but you really don't know until you get these guys to the States, and then even then you don't know until they start performing in regular season ball. So
yeah, it's sorry. Greg texted me Greg was trying to figure out because there's a rally of sorts on Saturday.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Is it Saturday?
Yeah. Saturday.
Right.
Yeah. So he's making special arrangements for media parking.
Nice.
So he just texted me, and I was just looking at my phone for the first time, and so I just realized, too, it's almost 11. But thank you for everybody who's been tuning in this evening. Was there anything else you wanted to highlight this week, Chris?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. Well, we touched on all the levels. We discussed the promotions. We didn't really do draft stuff. I don't know. I mean, we had the whole draft shows. I don't know if there's anything beyond that to talk about. We saw, Max Clark was up in Detroit. He'll probably be down in the in the Florida Complex League.
He might start as soon as this week. I mean,
I would think at some point this week. Yeah, those guys will start playing. Maybe not on Tuesday, but maybe. And then I think the rest of it. I think we'll see all those guys pretty much start in the Complex League, and then maybe a game or two they'll move over to Lakeland.
Yeah.
Not. I think like Max Anderson, he'll probably play a little bit in the Complex, then over to Lakeland.
As far as them
Bentley.
starting, I was gonna say maybe starting West Michigan. I don't see that happening, but stranger things have happened.
From what we've seen of promotions under Scott Harris, I don't know if he's completely hands-on with all these guys. He probably is. I don't think it's just up to Garco, but he doesn't seem terribly aggressive compared to Avila and Dabrowski. So I don't think that they would push anybody up to West Michigan. It's possible if one of these guys performs. I was talking to Dan that I wouldn't have predicted that Danny Soretti made it to West Michigan last year, let alone Erie in his first year after getting drafted. So you never know if these guys come out and really perform. The college guys, if they come out and perform, you could see them in West Michigan. But I think it's unlikely we'll see any of the high school guys get their way to West Michigan this year.
Yeah, I mean it would be nice, but it's gonna be interesting to see the next couple of weeks overall. We did get a question about whether the Mud Hens play the Rail Riders next season in 2024 away games. I don't know if did they put the schedule out for next year yet?
I don't know. I'll search.
Look that up. So, but beyond that, so in terms of written content this week, we should have some articles posted over at tigersmlreport.com. And yes, by the trade deadline, once we figure out whether the Tigers are going to make a couple of trade prospects or not, the trade deadline, there will be a trade deadline show. So just as a heads up, so we will be all over that when it happens. But by then, we should have our top 30. Like the top 30 is pretty much done.
We have the top 30 ready. We're just waiting to add in any trade acquisitions. And I would assume the Tigers get 2 guys.
Yeah,
it'll end up on our top 30, maybe 3. Maybe
one
who sneaks
one
into
will
the
be a
top
lottery
10.
ticket. Yeah, one might be a lottery ticket, but one I would assume would be a prospect. Yeah, that you're right, Chris. Maybe put in the top 10. So
yeah, that's the hope. Who knows? Maybe they'll sign Lorenz into an extension and trade Rodriguez for nothing. Who knows? But we're hopeful that they add some more talent to the system.
Yeah,
because it just reminded me that we had a question. I threw out the question in the minor league chat on the Discord, and who was it? Wegsybot, right? He had a question for us. Where is he? I'm looking for it. Maybe something like, where do you think the Tigers rank against the rest of the league after half a season in the draft? In terms of, let's see, I know this is a Tigers pod, but maybe the better question would be like, do you think the Tigers are in a better place now than the system was when the year started, ups and downs considered? Is the system better now than it was to begin the year? I would say yes, but mostly because of the draft, right? Like there have been some positive developments from players within the system. We always liked Colt Keith. Everybody kind of came to Jesus this year and saw how good he was.
On the bandwagon. You're welcome.
So that's not like a huge shock to us, right? That he has performed well. Malloy, we didn't really know. We thought Malloy was pretty good, and then to the beginning of the year he was on fire, and now we know he's pretty good. Like he's not a top 100 type prospect, but he's a solid prospect who might turn out decently. I'll say that Jace Young, I think, has performed better than I expected, even though I still am a little bit skeptical about him. So that's an improvement there. The pitching has Montero has stepped up in a big way, but you got kind of, Madden and Flores have been fine. They haven't been bad by any means. They just haven't taken the huge leap forward like you'd like to see from seemingly every Cincinnati Reds pitching prospect this year. But yeah, I think in general that the organization's in a better place, stronger, a little bit deeper. You got your Justice Bigbees out there coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and you have. I think one of the things to consider too is we were talking about this earlier about Lakeland playing better than winning 12 in a row somehow, some way. So they're piecing together the progress of Jose Mercado is to me good because, or Joseph Mercado, it's they definitely needed another. I want to say win yet because we haven't seen him outside of Lakeland yet, but still, nevertheless, it's still progress because Lakeland hasn't really been starter rich. I think one of the other things that I think that you can hang your hat on in terms of improvement wise is out. If you look at Justice Bigby, we just talked about him, but even guys like Chris Myers who have made significant improvements. Ben Jerry comes to mind as well. So there's been a couple like people that we weren't expecting, and even with Hurdler's numbers too. I mean, he's not second in all of the Tigers, leading with 90 strikeouts and 76 innings of work. I think the development of Flores' third pitch too is also plays a role in his start. Again, he is going out there trying to improve himself as a starter, and so sometimes you will see at times that it's not going to be pretty, but he gets the job done. But he's got to work on that pitch somehow, some way. The development of Gibson Long's cutter, that's another thing to consider because he didn't have that pitch at the beginning of the year, and he's suddenly throwing it for strikes. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Well, so here's the thing. That's the interesting thing about that. Gibson Long in Toledo, so we had his pitch data, right? According to Savant, he didn't throw a single cutter in that start. And you know what happened? He got bombed by lefties. All his damage came against lefties. Cody Clemens hit a 3-run homer against him. I think he gave up 7 hits, and 6 of them were against lefties. So I was looking at the individual pitch data, and I couldn't see like anything getting mislabeled like as a slider instead of a cutter. So I don't know. Like we know that he added that and has been using it, and then he gets to Toledo and they just don't use it, and it it cost him a little bit. He pitched well, but so yeah, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe he just wasn't comfortable with it entirely and didn't want to break it out or what. But yeah, but that is an example. We talked about Job has added a cutter this year that looks really good. Ty Madden is throwing his cutter more. There's been a lot of positive developments in some of these guys. As you said, Flores. People complain about Flores, his delivery still, the way he kind of spins off the mound, but he's still throwing enough strikes. And if you watch Michael Lorenzen, he doesn't come off the mound terribly cleanly. He spins around a lot too. Like there are guys who do that. It's just the way it is. So I'm still not entirely convinced that Flores is a starter in the big leagues. And Stop It asked if we're going to see him start in Detroit this year, and I don't think so. He's not on the 40-man roster, so
Yeah.
I don't think they would add him just to start him late in the season. I don't think if we see any starts late in the season from minor leagues guys, it's going to be like emergency, right? It's going to be the Brendan Hanafis of the world or whatever. They bring them up and then jettison them just as quickly. But
Deadly Ninja Bee's asked, is everyone throwing cutters now? Thanks to Robert Lutton. Yeah, there's some more people throwing cutters.
For real, yeah. They've really apparently it's something he really likes. He likes to have guys add that to their arsenal, and it is a good pitch, right? Like if you can throw a good cutter, it's a great weapon to neutralize opposite side hitters for you, and that's what we know about pitches that move horizontally. The harder you throw them, the better they are. That's sweepers have become kind of in vogue, but they are terrible against opposite side hitters.
Yeah.
If you're a right-hander throwing a sweeper to a lefty, you're in trouble. And so throwing a cutter along with that gives you another weapon. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I don't think Flores is throwing a cutter. I don't know if
didn't he throw a cutter to the last year? I mean, I thought he threw kind of like a short.
So
cutter.
Yeah, I mean, he's always thrown two distinct breaking balls to me, and some people say it's a cutter and a slider, and I thought it was a slider and a curve. I don't know, but yeah, it's something that if guys have a little bit of a feel for it, they're going to work on it with them, and that's been a positive development. And I think, in general, I think the system's a little bit better than it was at this time last year. Just partially through the draft. I think they had a much better draft than they did last year. We were picking higher, so that helps. And
yeah,
they had a different strategy, and then it worked out pretty well, I think. We believe they signed 19 of the 21 I don't think I ever heard from the Carter kid. The Ferris kid said he wasn't signing. So, but yeah, it'll be exciting to see who they get here at the trade deadline, what kind of players they target. I set a filter to players with power and patience who didn't strike out much. Just like that seemed like the kind of guy that they were going to go after. And it was interesting when I set that filter, I ended up with 2 Tigers on the list, Malloy and Parker Meadows. So I was like, okay, well this this makes sense. These might be the kind of players they're going to target. But in trades, sometimes you just have to take the best player possible, right? So like Raj said, they might end up with a catcher who they really like his defense and doesn't hit a ton, or they might end up with a pitcher, even though they don't necessarily seem to want that. But if that's the best player you can get for Erod, then you go for it, right?
Right. And as far as, I mean, if they end up trading both starters, both Lorenz and Rodriguez, and yeah, you might see a likely start from Sawyer Gibson Long or somebody else. I don't know. Again, they might even get a pitcher back in return that is in AAA that doesn't really have any room to go. So,
yeah, Sergio mentioned Tyler Madison. He's been a positive development along
Yeah.
with Blake Holub, and then he asked, is Gibson Long going to get a start in Detroit this year?
Yeah.
That one might be slightly more likely. Still, he's another guy who's not on the 40-man, but
yeah,
it would not shock me because we've heard that Scott Harris likes him, right?
yeah. We've been told he's a big fan of his. So I don't know. I mean, I think again, even though one person we totally forgot about in all this is Reese Olson. Reese Olson has, I mean, he is another guy who took it to another level this year. I mean, even if he got beat up in his start against the Padres, that's the Padres. And
yeah, they're one of the best offenses in baseball over the last month. It's there's no huge shame, and it really was just Juan Soto, right?
Yeah,
Juan Soto hit 7,000 miles of home runs against him, and that's because Juan Soto is, he's not as crazy as he's been over the last couple of years, but he's still one of like the 5 best hitters in baseball. Like they're going to get you, especially if you throw them fastballs in your Reese Olson. But you got to do what you got to do.
Richard made a suggestion Lorenz to Cincinnati for Chase Petty.
Well, that'd be fun. Chase Petty was he was the Twins, I want to say, first rounder a couple of years ago, and they traded him. Was that the Molly trade? I don't remember who they traded him for.
I can't remember either.
Sonny Gray?
Was it the Sonny Gray trade? That actually would make more sense.
I think it was, but yeah, I think he's up to Double-A now. He was a guy who was throwing 100 as a high schooler with a ton of effort, and I think they've calmed him down now, and he looks more like a starting pitcher. But yeah, I don't know, something like that. I could see. I didn't even mention pitching prospects for the Reds in that part of the trade article. I just threw out a bunch of offensive names because they have a ton of them right now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they have more. They have a lot of infield prospects, just a lot of them, and they have to do something. They have to make some decisions on them at some point. But yeah, you did. I mean, in terms of pitching, you mentioned Brandon Pafflet, the Diamondbacks.
Oh, Brandon Fott.
Okay, that. Oh, I was still not even close.
I mean, it's a PFAADT. It's a stupid name.
Yeah. Or Carson Wisenhunt for the Giants,
his people or wherever he comes from, but it's a dumb name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that one was really. I feel like honestly that was like the least realistic trade I threw out there because he was a legit like top 30 prospect. 2 months ago,
right?
And he still probably is. He's just every time he gets to the big leagues, he gets bombed. And I was like, and I just couldn't. Like you even mentioned, it was funny. You mentioned Vukovic and Blaze Alexander to me, and they didn't fit my criteria. Like I set out the power and walks and strikeouts, so I didn't put them in there. And then somebody on Twitter was like, "Hey, what do you think about this deal with Arizona for these 2 guys?" I'm like, "I'll be damned." The exact same 2 guys Roger mentioned. So maybe there's something to it. I just I set a line in the sand, just trying to find guys, and that's where we found out like Tyler Black and Joey Loperfido and which I thought they all made sense, right? They're not necessarily top 100 prospects, but they're guys who could get there based on their performance. So anyway.
Yeah. All right. How about it? So thank you so much for listening. We appreciate it. We're going to have the podcast out tomorrow. And if you're listening to our audio version already, well, thank you for listening. We appreciate that. And so trade deadline is what? The 29th?
I think it's August 1st.
Is it August 1st? Okay. So that would be Tuesday. Okay. So it would be a Tuesday. All right. So there'll be a show for that. There'll be a normal show on Thursday. And more than likely I'll probably be going to a couple of games this weekend with the Angels coming to town. The Giants coming to town for a makeup game starts at 1:00 tomorrow. So, or excuse me, 1:10 to be precise. So thank you everybody. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you if you want a member of our Discord. We'll talk to you there. We'll talk to you online on Twitter or whatever it's called tomorrow, whether they change their mind. We do have Blue Sky, so if you find us on Blue Sky and Threads,
I mean, it's we don't need to get into it too much, but it's like
it's horseshit.
well, it just like we're still posting everything on Twitter because that's just
Yeah.
what we've done forever, right? And it's I don't want to triple post stuff,
Yeah.
but maybe we can set something up to where it automatically posts on Blue Sky and Threads too.
Yeah.
That would be nice, but I don't know if you can do that with video. But thanks everybody for checking us out and hanging with us, and thanks again for all the donations, and it's been very helpful, and it'll help again this week as we drive to Erie and get you guys some footage of Jace Young in his Double-A debut, or at least his first week in Double-A. We're not going to be there on Tuesday.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get some Job stuff too as well.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys later.